Are you ready for something more, better, or different? Have you been looking for more success in your life? Here is your opportunity. Dr. Young's show, Transformation for Success, will help you discover a future for change with possibility thinking, new vision, and creative solutions to impact a more fulfilling lifestyle. Dr. Barbara is an accomplished leader and change guru who is passionate about helping others to gain the triumphs and successes that lie ahead. She brings you up close and personal with interviews from successful experts, corporate leaders, sports figures, entertainment personalities, coaches, thought leaders, and authors who dared to dream, take risks, and gain success. Now, here is your host, Dr. Barbara Young.
Welcome to my United States and international listeners to Transformation for Success on the Voice America platform. This is your host, Dr. Barbara Young. Today, we are kicking off the After the Pandemic What's Next Summit series, where I'm featuring 12 influential and iconic speakers over the next 5 Tuesdays. It has been stated that some of the greatest advances have been birthed by disaster. But for whom does it end? And who gets to decide is the question. This After the Pandemic What's Next Summit will provide you with up-close and informative interviews with these renowned men and women in their areas of expertise who will share their viewpoints on how we can take practical steps, make plans for transformative change, what are some of the strategies that we can use for coping mechanisms on a short-term and long-term basis. Will we do business as usual? Can we expect any major changes? And if so, in what areas? Now, we don't have all the magic answers, but we can talk about what individuals can do to navigate the challenges that they may face going forward on professional, personal, financial, health, and spiritual levels in light of the speed of events we see happening today. And I'm so pleased to welcome my first guest who's kicking off the Pandemic Summit, Mr. Bob Burg, well-known Hall of Fame keynote speaker and best-selling co-author of The Go-Giver and The Go-Giver book series. And Bob is a leading authority on influence, and he has a new book called The Go-Giver Leader. So, Bob, I want to thank you. Greetings, and thank you for taking time from your very busy schedule to be a featured guest to kick off the show today. Hello.
Hello. Greetings, Dr. Barbara. Always an honor and a pleasure to speak with you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. And I know, as we talked before in the green room, we know that none of us have all of the answers to some of the questions that people are posing, but we are so aware that we're in the midst of one of our most challenging times in history. And I just have a couple of questions, Bob, in your opinion, from a professional point of view in light of this pandemic. What's next? What do you think? And I know you may not have all the answers, but you certainly have a word of wisdom that you can share with our leaders and business entrepreneurs today.
Well, as you said, we don't know for sure. And so I think with that, we've got to really do what successful people tend to do, and that is look for what we can control and control that, okay, and focus on that. Because when it comes to a pandemic, and as we've seen, there's simply a lot we cannot control. We can't control the disease or the virus itself. There are times when governments, whether our local or our town or local stores, what have you, they put restrictions on things and so forth. So if you can't go up to a place because it's closed or they're not letting, well, you can't. I mean, it's out of your control. It's out of my control. So those things we've got to just deal with and understand that. Then we've got to ask ourselves, okay, what can I control? Can I control my attitude? Now, that sounds like just sort of some motivational rah-rah thing. But the fact is, our attitude is the only thing we can actually totally control. This assumes, of course, that it's we're not talking about a chemical imbalance. I'm talking about but where we actually do have control of our attitude. And, we can the fact is, it's a lousy situation, but it's not as lousy as a lot of other situations in the past. You know, if you ever read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, you know, he was caught up in the Holocaust. He was certainly in one of the concentration camps and the horrors he had to go through. And he's the one who said, the only thing they cannot take away from you is your choice as to how you're going to. Right. And so, you know, it's a yucky situation. It's a lousy situation, but it's not the worst, you know, for most of us. And, of course, there are people who it has hit horrendously and is really, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about for those of us who, you know, So I think that's where we begin. We begin by controlling what we can control and letting go of what we cannot control.
I like that. And then remembering that your choice is always in the mix. It's your choice.
It is. Exactly. You know, then we keep our eye on what is happening next. You know, there's the saying, the new normal. But you know what? We don't know what that new normal is going to be and how normal it's going to be. But you know what? We will still survive this. And the things will happen that will, you know, and again, I'm not one of these people who ever says, oh, there's good reasons for that. Well, you know, there may be, and there probably is, but now isn't the time, you know, to try to say why this is good, because we don't know how or yet. That's usually something you see in retrospect, sometimes years later, sometimes decades later, sometimes months later. But it will work out, and we will survive this, and we will adjust as we need to adjust.
You know, one of the things that I was reminded of, you know, because I've been asked a lot of questions about this subject and what do people do, and I've been the voice out there preaching hope and trust and faith, and that realizing that in one of the greatest disasters in this country, with the fall of businesses, there were many millionaires that came out of that. And so how do you address, you know, when you talk about keep your eye on what's normal, but there are opportunities for growth. You've been sharing a lot with people in terms of leadership and being an influencer. How would you speak to that, to those who are looking to start a new enterprise or to venture out with something they've never done? Because I've talked with many people about maybe looking within. This pandemic is not the end of the world, but it is an opportunity to look, as you said, what can I control? How can I? And one thing is your attitude, and then how can I look for, and where should I look for opportunities for growth? So will we do business as usual? What can business leaders and entrepreneurs do from your point of view, Bob? And what's the message you're telling people? Because you've shared a lot and been so inspirational with so many individuals.
Well, there's lots of shifting taking place, and I think a lot of companies, small and large, are saying, okay, if right now we're not doing business with our customers in the usual way because they're not buying our widgets or what have you, how can we adjust so that we can offer something that they do need, they do want, they do desire? So that's where the shift is. It always goes to, because remember, people never buy from you because you have a quota to meet or because you need the money. They buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. So that entrepreneur or that business executive or that salesperson or what have you, that person who can keep asking themselves the question, okay, how do we match what I have to offer with what the other person needs, wants, or desires? How do I shift my business model to be able to give that to them? That's the person who is going to survive and actually thrive. But it's all a matter of finding a way to be of value to another human being, because money is simply an echo of value. It's the reward you receive when you provide value to someone else. Value can come in the form of solving someone's problems or helping them to acquire something that they want. I mean, what have you. But that's really what it comes down to. your focus needs to be on how do I somehow, some way provide value to the marketplace.
And I think that's really interesting. And I want to know too, Bob. You and I talked so much about transformation and basically how you've been able to help people over the years with your speaking, your leadership, and then your sales conferences. So, I just kind of want to get to this because what was the core philosophy of your Go-Giver books and the philosophy? Because you talked a lot about the entrepreneurial spirit. And what about those who aren't entrepreneurs? What's the message you would say to them today? Because, again, if you're not an entrepreneur, how are you going to find a way of being of value to another human being? Because most people think of, well, I need to go into business, or, I need a company. So can we just address that? Not putting you on the spot.
Well, no, that's okay. The philosophy, the premise of, the whole Go-Giver series is that shifting your focus off of yourself and onto others. So moving from an I focus or me focus to a focus on others is not only a more pleasant way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way. And again, not for any magical, mystical reasons, but for very logical, rational reasons, that when you can make another person's life better, well, they're much more likely to want to be in relationship with you, to want to do business with you, to want to refer you to others. So, that's the premise. Now, whether you're an entrepreneur, which we think of as someone who starts their own business, they risk financially, time-wise, they invest their own money as well as others that they will owe and so forth. That's an entrepreneur, sure. But even if you're working within another company, even if you're working as an employee, while you may not be an entrepreneur, you're still an intrapreneur. And just like this entrepreneur who has customers that they depend on in order to survive, well, you have a customer too. You have plenty of customers. It's the people within the company you work for that you report to, whose lives you need to add value to. So it might be your supervisor, it might be your colleagues and coworkers. It's of course ultimately penultimately it's the employer. Ultimately, it's the customers. Even if you never speak with them personally, just by what you do, how it affects them. So by always focusing on providing additional value within the organization, what you're doing, first of all, is you're keeping yourself invaluable so that you keep your job, but you're also placing yourself, creating the context for you to get a raise, be promoted, have advance within the company.
Well, one of the things that I've always appreciated about you is really asking people about value and how people add value to others, and definitely shifting your focus on others. And I think some of the success stories that we have seen in the news, well, me personally and maybe you as well, have been people who've shifted their focus from themselves to how can I make life better for others. An example is the woman who started to make clothing for children who had deformities, that were born challenged, and she started making sleepwear for them. And there are other entrepreneurs, or you wouldn't call them maybe an entrepreneur at this time, but definitely they shifted their focus from themselves to others. I want to bring up something that the premise of your book, and if you don't mind, you had those 5 laws that you and John shared. Maybe it's time we get back to the beginning, get back to the roots, Bob, of the 5 laws that you and John shared in your first book. Would you mind just sharing those? Because I think it would be a benefit to some of those, and particularly some of my world leaders who may not have read your book, but are reading your books, which I would advise them to do. But you have so much to give. So, review those 5 laws.
In the Go-Giver, which is the original book in the series, there are 5 laws. The laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. And just summarizing them very briefly, the law of value really looks at the importance of providing such an immensely value-based experience that the person who does business with you feels as though they receive lots more in value than what they paid. Well, of course, you also make a very healthy profit. So both parties come away better off afterwards than they were beforehand.
Right.
And again, that takes place because of a focus that you bring on to the other person on making this a very unique experience for them. Law number 2, the law of compensation, says your income is determined by how many people you serve, as well as how well you serve them. So it's not just about providing immense value, as important as that is. It's also being able to impact the lives of many people with that value. Law number 3, the law of influence, which says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. And that's not meant in a way that says you should be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial. It's simply understanding a very, very basic premise, and that is all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving off of yourself and making your win all about their win. Law number 4, the law of thank you. Law number 4, the law of authenticity. Says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself, which just means you're really bringing your own self to the game. You're not trying to be anyone else, but you're congruent with, your actions are congruent with your stated values, and people know what they're getting. They know who they're getting, which makes people feel very comfortable and very safe with you and to trust you. Law number 5 is the law of receptivity, and this says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving, which means that not only do we breathe out, but we also have to breathe in, right? We breathe out carbon dioxide. We also breathe in oxygen. You can't do one without the other.
Absolutely.
The key is that you focus. Your focus is on the giving, of giving value. The focus is on the giving, but then you also have to allow yourself to receive.
I love that. It's a matter of fact, just as a side note, I had an interview with a person who is a professional in a high-profile job, and I asked him, over the years, you've had a lot of personal and professional experiences. What would you say was one of your biggest challenges? And he stated one of the biggest was being open to receive rather than always giving, but open to receive.
Yeah.
So that receptivity is a lot, and particularly for, I think, a lot of professionals who are in certain areas of influence. And Bob, I wanted to go back to this because I think when we shared earlier, maybe there's not a lot to say or to we don't know what's going to happen. We don't have all the answers, but yet instead, you come up today with what I feel are some of the valuable answers, and we get back to basics of these 5 laws that you and John shared in this book. Now, sometimes we have to be reminded as of individuals of what has been said, and one of those principles was influence, and I really, really admire you and John for bringing this book, and I just wanted to bring it back to life because I think these are some of the things that people can really chew on as they look towards the future. Look for what you can control. You've said, ask, what can I control? And you said attitude is the only thing that you can control. So true. And having a bad attitude will not bring business. It will not help you during this pandemic. It will not help you to be fearful and anxious and angry. So I just want to thank you. And then keeping a choice. I'm repeating, Bob, kind of what you said. I was taking notes. That your choices matter, and it's always your choice. The ball is always on you. Keep your eye on what is the new normal. Now, when you said that, Bob, the new normal may not be what we saw in 2019 or years prior. We don't know what the new normal may be, but is there a way we can carve out a new normal? By what you just said.
I think to the degree, yeah. To the degree,
well, some of the things that what you said
degree,
about keeping your eye on the new normal, of being kind, of looking at what you control, having a great attitude, remembering that life is a choice. So I just want to say, is there a last word that you have? Because I looked at value-based experiences, compensation, how many people that you can serve, influence, how you place other people first and foremost. You place them as the important ones. Authenticity, that you're bringing yourself, your values to the game. And I believe that bring it to the game of life. Receptivity, and that is a big one, because we have all got to be open for change. Change is here. We are not going back to the old way. So we will have to, as business entrepreneurs, and especially in the economic environment that we have now, definitely have to be receptive and open to change. Bob, are there any last remarks you'd like to make? Because I can't thank you enough, because really, this was really very beneficial.
Thank you. Well, you always have a way of bringing out the best in people, and I appreciate that. I think just, the one last thing is make sure you get together with others and discuss ideas, because they're probably having the same feelings you are. And, to the degree that we can all kind of get together in small groups, bigger groups, kind of, play ideas off of each other and receive feedback and provide feedback, that's the degree we can all add value to the whole and create that benevolent context for success.
Thank you so much, Bob. I'll have to have you on another show, because really you got a lot more to say. And so I want to thank you for sharing. And I'm certain many of the listeners have enjoyed and benefited from what you've stated. And for those of you who may have questions or you have comments, you can call me or write me at info@transformationforsuccess.com. And I'll be happy to send your questions on to Mr. Bob Berg. So, Bob, thank you again for sharing your voice and the success strategies that you gave today with my listeners. I know I've benefited as well as my listeners. So God bless you. Continue to do the good work, and I know you will. Stay safe and be blessed. Thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Barber.
Follow us on Twitter for more great ideas at VoiceAmerica Empowerment.
Things Worth Considering, featuring host Gord Riddell and Alexia Georgiousis, is a program that's all about connections. The connections we make with our families, our workplaces, friends, and others around us. It's also about connections to ourself, spirit, feelings, and stories. Let us connect with you each week to explore who we are and what we can be moving forward. We can overcome the obstacles that stand in our way. Things Worth Considering airs live every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time on Voice America Empowerment. Voice America programs are now available on your favorite connected device, including Amazon, Alexa, and Google Home. Through streams with Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio, listening to your favorite show is as easy as saying the show name followed by the word podcast.
Hey, Alexa, play Finding Your Frequency podcast.
If that doesn't work, try adding on TuneIn or on iHeartRadio or on Apple Podcasts.
What sets apart VoiceAmerica.tv from the other video content providers on the Internet? Choice and flexibility means that you can host your video content live or on demand on the main VoiceAmerica.tv channels through your own branded media player or your own private TV channel. We support multiple media formats, so all of your video content can be in one place. We offer a number of advertising and video packages. For more information, visit VoiceAmerica.tv. If you think you've seen online TV like this before, let us surprise you.
Follow the Voice America Empowerment channel on Twitter. You already know we're full of great ideas, and our hosts have plenty to say. We want to hear from you, too. Be sure to follow us at VA Empowerment and come back every day to see what's next.
You need to live up to your full potential. You've heard that for years, but now there's a channel to help you get there. Introducing the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Our listeners have told us that they want to be motivated, hear about success stories, and positive encouragement around the clock. And we've responded to you. The Voice America Empowerment Channel is the home of the world's top life coaches, entrepreneurs, and success experts. Listen to the Voice America Empowerment Channel. It's here at VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
The Voice America Live Events channel is here now to showcase your corporate, individual, or organization's live event. Visit voiceamerica.com/live events to see all of our past live events and find out more. Whether it's a multi-day conference, special speaker, or single-day event, we've got everything to make your event a success. We can do a few hours or a few days. For more information about taking your event to the next level, call Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417 or email info@voiceamerica.com. Again, that's Jeff Spinard at 480-294-6417 or send us an email to info@voiceamerica.com. Voice America is where you are and where you want to be. Join us around the globe as we broadcast live from some of the most interesting events available. Don't forget to view all our live events, including on-demand access to past events that you may have missed by visiting voiceamerica.com/live events.
Have you friended us on Facebook yet? Why not? Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for the keywords Voice America. Once you are part of our Facebook network, you'll receive daily messages about what's happening with our shows, this week's featured guests, and new happenings at the Voice America Talk Radio Network. And you can add your voice to the always active discussions on our timeline. Just go to facebook.com/Voice America or search for Voice America.
This is Transformation for Success. To reach Dr. Barbara Young or today's guest, please call into the program at 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. You may also send an email to info@transformationforsuccess.com. Now, back to this week's program.
Well, hello, and back to After the Pandemic, What's Next Summit with my next guest, Mr. Erik Stern. Hello, Erik. How are you?
I'm so great. How are you?
I am so great, and I'm so thankful to have you on the show. I tell you, I want to get my listeners to know that this is none other than Mr. Erik Stern, entrepreneur, speaker, mentor, investor, and Erik is the co-founder of Constant Contact and many other startup ventures, and he's known as America's startup success expert. So, Erik, it is so great to have you as a featured guest on the show today. I have, as you know, we are going through one of the most challenging times ever in our history. And my question to you, and I'll be very brief, a couple of questions. From a professional point of view in light of this pandemic, what would you say that might be next steps for businesses? What will we say to people who are in business or going into business? What would you say to them? Will we go into business as usual? And what kind of changes can one expect from your perspective? These are just a couple of the questions that I'm throwing out to you.
Oh, yeah, no, these are, I'm sure, top of mind for a lot of people and discussions that people are having. And in fact, over the last 4 or 5 months, I've spent a lot of time talking to small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups about where we are and sort of today's market conditions and everything that has evolved for what does it mean to do business today. So very timely. And I think the first thing I often will ask people, if you look at your 3 to 5 year vision, if you're already in business today, are you on a track to achieve the vision that you're hopeful for or looking for? And half the people say no. So it really is sort of a step back to say, okay, let's talk about working on the business, not in the business. Let's get away from the tactics. Let's get away from the things you did before. And let's talk about, are you on the path to that vision? And if you're not, what can you do to change to get on that path? And oftentimes it's just getting back out. If you're brand new, it's getting out to your target market and really assessing what is it that they're looking for? What do they want? What do they want more of? What don't they have? And then seeing if what you're going to bring out will be something that would get them either saving time, saving money, or increase revenue. If you're already in business, you potentially are on a lane in a highway doing business, and the lane adjacent to where you are might be the bigger opportunity or something that can get you on the path that you're looking for. If you're not there now, and if you are, what can you do that's different today to achieve those goals and objectives? Because everyone says, "Oh, you got to think outside the box and you got to do all these things." Well, we don't know if what's coming next is a box or a cylinder or a rectangle, or we don't know what it is. So we've got to really start to think about talking to our target market and doing things differently. Especially as it relates to virtual activities that we're all getting accustomed to these days, which is something that most businesses haven't done before. That I guess that'd be the first thing I would center on, and the things that I do see. Virtual is here to stay, and so with the people that you are working with as customers today, you've got to find ways to bring in virtual and do more things with them today with regard to virtual. And so there are a lot of opportunities to stay in front of your customers without waiting for them to come back to you. And that's what I think a lot of people aren't doing, hadn't done before, and really aren't doing much of now, and really need to step up and do so. So I guess the next thing I would just say is, as it relates to virtual. So, for example, I was talking to an art gallery, and I asked them, "Where's the art?" And they said, "Well, it's locked up in in our retail shop, and when we get a chance to open up, we'll pull it back out." And I said, "Why don't you take one of your top artists and bring home that art? 4, 5, 6 pieces. Do a virtual art show. Get your artists to come on the show, talk about what's their influence for getting into painting and doing the works of art. Let them talk about the individual pieces. Invite all your customers. Ask them to do watch parties and invite their friends."
Wow!
And in talking to a gallery owner, they did just that. And they said that they sold a piece of art, that one of their customers set up a watch party, and some of their friends actually participated in the watch party. And one of the extensions to their customers actually bought a piece of art. So, so that's one example of how you can stay in front of your customers virtually while instead of just waiting for them to come back in when you reopen your gallery.
One of my intriguing questions that came to me, because we know that there are many business owners or maybe people in business that are leaders that are maybe not as up to date and current on this digital future that they find themselves in. Particularly, I'm thinking of some of the more seasoned business leaders. Have you been able to chat with them? Or even have conversations with them as to what their plan might be. And then my second question on that, we have a lot of students who are in college today. What would you say to them that would be their best guess to major in business, but would they focus on a particular area? I know that's a twofold question, but we still have a lot of seasoned, what I call seasoned individuals that are still working, still in the business world, but they're behind when it comes to being in the digital marketplace.
Yeah, so there's no time like the present to move digitally and virtually. I mean, I think we're sort of talking about just getting in front of your target market and more importantly your customers. I asked a lot of folks, how much are you spending time with your customers today? And they're like, well, not a lot. Once things come back to normal, we'll start sort of re-engaging. And I'm like, there's such a miss there, because your best prospect is your current customer. If most people sort of put the customers aside to go look for new customers. Well, your current customers are a trusted resource, their sphere of influence to tell others about what you're doing. affords you a lot more opportunity to get new customers, through your current. And so now more than ever, you've got to really show a lot of love and attention, and put that toward your current customers. And so it's stepping up and doing some things virtually. So if you're not in the digital world and really focusing in on digital marketing and sort of all aspects of that, then you can ease your way into that and start to test some things now. Your current customers and your target market have a little more time on their hands, so there's opportunities for them to potentially see and spend more time with things that you might do with them because they're not in the day-to-day of their world as much, and so they have a little more free time. If you're starting a business or you have an idea, so if you're a seasoned folks are many are starting new businesses as folks coming out of college or just that want to be entrepreneurs. And I think that, I'll often ask people, are you innovative? Do you think you're an innovator? And I'll ask at audiences when I'll speak at conferences, 10, 15% of the hands go up. And I'll say, how many of you any day, week, or month have an idea? You've seen a product or service and say, gee, that service could have been delivered better. That product could have added these features and probably been better. But have ideas, and every hand goes up. And so the bottom line is get working on that idea, noodle on it, talk to others about it. You might find some other people that want to jump in and work on the idea with you and start building a team around the idea. But get out as early as possible to your target market and ask them for feedback. And don't go to family and don't go to people you know. Don't go to people you've done business with before. You go to strangers because you'll get brutal, honest feedback. And so you'll ask them about what they're looking for and what are their goals and so on. And then you'll say, look, if we could provide you something that will save you money or increase revenue or save you time, would that be of interest to you? And so oftentimes they'll say yes, and you share your value proposition or possibly even demonstrate something that you were thinking of working on. And when they get wide-eyed with the idea, then you're onto something. So don't work in stealth mode. Don't worry about don't share trade secrets. Just get out to your target market as early as possible with new ideas, new features, new offerings, or existing ones that you're enhancing. Let your target audience be the ones to tell you if you're onto something.
Do you feel, now that you bring this up, that the millennials sort of get this in terms of some of your ideas that you just shared? The millennials. Because they seem to be, from my point of view, they seem to be making headway with some of the things that you just outlined. Working in a group, having ideas, sharing their goals, getting feedback, really targeting an audience, getting out there in the digital world. And so will some of the seasoned folks be left behind? Or I'm just asking you a question, just came to my mind about the millennials seem to be getting it. Do you find that to be so?
Well, I'd say on some fronts, yes, the millennials, they have a propensity to work in front of a computer. They have a propensity to potentially do some digital things. But as it relates to some of the other things that I mentioned around getting out early and often, talking to a target market, reaching out into your network to find someone who knows someone who, might be someone you'd want to speak to in the target market. I think that, more seasoned folks would be more comfortable with things like that. I think millennials may want to work in a vacuum or maybe just share the idea with a friend or two and kind of, I think in either case, those that will step up and get out and get in front of their target market and get feedback and share ideas. It's one thing to share it with others. It's another to share it with your target market. And I often hear people say, well, I know what they need. I used to be a small business, or, I spend a lot of time with small businesses. I know what they need. I'm like, but you don't know today what they want. So go or need. So go out and ask. And so this isn't a judgment around millennials versus, more seasoned folks, but I think in either case, sometimes there's hesitance. And I think it's just that's where they may not feel comfortable, getting on the phone and calling, a small business if that's their target market to ask them questions or what have you. And I think in either case, you just got to get over that. You've got to get over it, and you've got to feel comfortable to have a conversation and talk to them about it and not revert back to just wanting to sort of do everything online. So I think it is important that some of the grassroots things that in either case, folks need to be comfortable doing.
What do you think about the growing, increasing number of masterminds that are being developed? I'm sort of taking note of a lot of this mastermind groups that are forming, with focus or, with Zoom conferencing and so forth. What's your take on that, Alex?
Yeah, so I think masterminds in general, and a lot of them are following the some of the principles of Napoleon Hill and the structure and so forth. Mm-hmm. I think they're great. Mm-hmm. The one thing I will say with all that's popped up virtually these days, and there's been a ton of masterminds. With everyone's doing it, right? So there's sort of Insta gurus, and there's these people that may not have the actual school of been there, done that, right? So it's more of the educational practices and the formation and the formality of the steps you take in a mastermind. So leading those, anyone can do. I think when it comes down to the, from the experience perspective, to be able to personally share things, some just may not have that actual experience themselves. So then they've just got to make sure they've surrounded themselves with others. And masterminds are great because you're not only learning from whoever the host is or the moderator or the the one running it. You also learn from peers. And so if you put together a peer group doing the mastermind that are all in the same or similar position of either the market that they're serving or the technologies that they're using, then they can all, the water level can be raised by all of them and learn something. So I think it's great that everyone's affording the opportunity for people to get together virtually and do things. For me, many have asked me, should I join this person's mastermind? Or what about this person's mastermind? Or which would you join? And I just tell people, you got to do your research. What is the host and the people running it? What is their background? What have they done before? And do you feel you could learn from that? And then also, who are the peers that are going to be on the mastermind to see if you feel that you're amongst a group that you're going to not only you could add value to them, and then you'll also get value back from them. And so sometimes when there's not a match and there's people of all shapes and sizes, it may not be something that you might grow out of it. And so it's just really making sure there's a match across the board. And I'm really a big fan of doing programs to help others. And so I've spent a fair amount of my time doing that. In fact, we'll be working on a program myself coming up soon with a few others that have been in the school of been there, done that, so that we can empower them with our lessons learned, but also, make sure we're learning from each other.
I think that's wonderful. And you've done so much. I really want to bring you back on the show, but I want to interview Alex Stern, and really I want to get to some basics of how you got started. However, we're talking about what's next after the pandemic, but before and after. One of the things I was intrigued too, Alec, you've had so much experience with startup companies in your past, and you've done an excellent job. What would you say would be, out of the startup companies that you worked with, what would you say were your successes, and what did they do that they became successful following your lead?
Yeah, and so there's several things. I guess I'll give you a couple of highlights maybe. I think the first thing is I stay in my lane. So I know the areas of go-to-market, branding, marketing. There's certain things that are in my lane. You think of there's so many things when you start a business that you have to focus on, and oftentimes they're not in your skill set, so you're going to take the time to learn it. You're going to take the time to do it. You're going to take the time to figure it out. Like all of that takes a lot of time. And I always ask somebody, time, value, and money. Like if you spend the 10 hours it needs to do that thing, just because you're a startup, you got to do it on your own, whatever. If you spend those 10 hours, if you took those 10 hours and did something that's in your lane of what you're really good at, would this business advance more, or would it advance comparable to you learning this new thing and doing it just because you got to wear all these hats when you're starting a business? And oftentimes there's not a lot of value in spending all that time. And then if there's maintenance to continue doing whatever those things are. So think about just, you could find people and hire them. You don't necessarily need a co-founder to do all those roles. You don't necessarily need someone who's on payroll. You could find folks that are fractional, payroll. So you're hiring them part-time. You could find interns. There's a lot of, there's admins and, all kinds of folks that you can bring into the fold. And another great place, especially for things with marketing and digital marketing and so on, that there are many that are expert in it. So the learning curve is zero, or not near zero, and they can get that done for you at a fraction of what it would cost in your time to do it yourself. So staying in your lane is my first thing that I've always sort of lived by. And then the second thing is that you've got to be title agnostic. Oftentimes when we start something, we want to be called the CEO. We want to be called the title.
I'm laughing, Erik, because that always happens. President, CEO.
Right. We might not want to do the work, but we want the title. And then you'll ask those people, well, what if you brought someone else in to take CEO or president or to step in above you to do that? Oh, no. No, I don't want anyone above me. So it becomes this, ego, whatever. And so egos aside, you got to put them aside when you're starting something. You're going to be humbled every day. You better get used to it. And one of the things is to be title agnostic and know that at some point, if you go out and you're going to raise funds, they're going to want to bring someone or some folks that they know that they've done things with that have led to success. They're going to do what they can to help make this successful. On top of giving money to you, they may bring resources as well, and you've got to be willing to step aside. So in all of the businesses that I was on the founding team of, we all established that title agnostic, and we're not going to worry about it. This is one of those areas where I see a lot of businesses fail. There's 3 co-founders. And I'm like, well, who's in charge? Well, we're all in charge. We're sort of co-CEOs, although, and I'm like, well, what's your discipline? Like, who's responsible? So one of them's more of an operational guy. One of them's more, maybe a business guy, and one of them's more of a technical role. And so at the end of the day, I'll say, okay, which one of you ultimately will get the CEO title when you go away from this co-CEO, co-founder, mentality? And they can't sit there and say, no, we're all going to be equally responsible and whatever. That's set up for failure. Because at some point, one person needs to be fully responsible for the success or failure of that company. And anyone investing is going to want to see that. But they also do want to see a team. They want to see people that are in different disciplines. If you're all technical,
that's very good.
Someone on the business, and so on. So it's just really important to make sure that you're taking into consideration that someone is you're going to have to split that up, and someone might become the actual CEO, someone might become the COO or the head of business development or marketing, and the third person might be the CTO, if those are your areas of expertise. And you've got to be willing to accept that. And I hear some that they even almost get in a little of a disagreement when I ask them these questions, because they just see themselves all equal. And that's, you can't, there's not 3 captains of a ship. That's why they make one person the captain.
One person,
mates.
Yep.
So,
well, Alec, I really can't thank you enough for bringing us, and I really like this. The point number 1, stay in your lane. I love that. And be the title agnostic. I love that. Be title agnostic. I've never heard that term before. I think you don't mind if I take that from you and quote Alex Stern. You have been absolutely.
Always quote me.
Thanks, Alex. You have been absolutely a blessing today to many professionals, and talking about sharing some of your thoughts and ideas as they relate to the future. And I hope many of you listeners, you were taking on notes. Work on the business and not what you can do. Target your market and see what you can do to bring them, save time and money. Remember, we're doing things differently today. Virtual definitely is here to stay. Customers, bring them on and face them. And I'm just sort of paraphrasing some of the things that you said. Do as much virtual as you can. And you gave the illustration of the virtual art show where they actually sold a painting. So thank you so much, Alec, for being on the show today, because I know the listeners have really gleaned some really vital information, because we're in an era to highlight the importance of how we can collaborate worldwide. This show is with listeners from all over the globe, and we are a united front in our efforts to find solutions for more sustainable success in the future with hope for all individuals. So I thank you for tuning in today to hear my guests, Mr. Bob Berg, Mr. Alec Stern. And thank you, Alec, again, for being on the show, Transformation for Success. I wish you Godspeed, and I look forward to meeting you in person very shortly. Thank you so much. Take care. This is Dr. Barbara Young signing off, and I want to thank my listeners for being on the show today, my guests for being on the show today, and I want to thank you listeners for tuning in to another Transformation for Success, where we're talking about After the Pandemic, What's Next Summit series. Remember, we are in an era of importance of worldwide cooperation, and that we will do, working together. So thank you, listeners, and I'll see you next week, where we have two more wonderful, iconic leaders who will share with you, from a personal growth perspective, strategies, success, transformational changes that you can make while going through this After the Pandemic, What's Next Summit. My guests next week will be Mr. Erik Swanson and Mr. Dan Clark. So you'll want to stay tuned for another segment with Dr. Barbara Young on the Voice America platform. Thank you very much for listening, and God bless all of you. Have a great week.
We appreciate you joining us for Transformation for Success. Please join your host, Dr. Barbara Young, again next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, that's 12 noon Pacific Time, on the Voice America Empowerment Channel. Or join us for replays of the show weekly on the Voice America Business Channel and the Voice America Influencers Channel. Until our next show, have an outstanding week.